Hello and welcome to Doubles and Trebles. It's Pieman here, just here to provide you with some reaction to today's announcement of the 2023 Premier League darts lineup. PDC leaving it later than ever, it seems, to announce this year's lineup. We'd not even had any kind of official confirmation of when to expect the lineup. It just kind of popped in out of nowhere this morning, and they couldn't really leave it any later, given the tournament actually starts this Thursday. As you can see on your screen there, we have the 8 in front of us. Some big surprises, I think it's fair to say, some not so surprising. We knew that top four were going to be in there: Michael Smith, Peter Wright, Michael van Gerwen and Gerwyn Price. And they have been joined by the quartet of Jonny Clayton, Nathan Aspinall, Dimitri van den Bergh and the new Masters champion, Chris Dobey. That means no spot for the likes of Luke Humphries, James Wade, Gary Anderson, Rob Cross, Danny Noppert, Josh Rock, Joe Cullen. I could name many, many more in there that might have had an outside chance of getting in. Ross Smith, Dirk van Dijvenbode, the list goes on. Naturally, this has elicited plenty of debate in social media. It's a topic that myself and Adam tend to steer clear of because we don't really care for the Premier League much as a competition, certainly until the latter stages anyway. However, did have this reboot last year, a new format with the 8 players playing to a winner on each arena night, all building up to the finals night. I still think it's a glorified exhibition. It doesn't really get my juices going, but I do naturally tune in just to watch some quality darts, to be fair. However, I do have some opinions on this lineup, it must be said. The first issue we've got to address is Chris Dobey getting in this lineup. Now, let me just put it on record. I'm a massive fan of Chris Dobey. Really, really seems like a top bloke. He's had a fantastic last few months, and fair play to him for parachuting himself into these spots. I don't think his win at the Masters was a complete fluke. If you look at what he achieved in the World Championship, a run to the quarterfinals where he was trounced by Michael van Gerwen, but then again, anyone could have been on that evening. He was really impressive in a couple of other tournaments leading up to that as well. So I wasn't all that surprised to see him go all the way at the Masters. He certainly beat his fair share of big names, including Luke Humphries and Joe Cullen, two of the players that he's got this spot over. So it's not anything against Chris Dobey. I just simply don't understand why the PDC would choose to give this spot to the Masters winner. We've seen them do it with Jonny Clayton. We've seen them do it with Joe Cullen. And both players have gone on to have very good campaigns. If, however, you're going to make the Masters a qualifier, a win and you're in for the Premier League, then just say that explicitly, because there is now this kind of presumption that the winner of the Masters is going to get into the Premier League. And the PDC have backed themselves into a corner in that regard. And they were almost obliged to put Chris Dobey in the Premier League. It would have been, extremely harsh from a Chris Dobey perspective if he wasn't rewarded with that Premier League spot. What it's resulted in, however, is Chris Dobey taking the place of Luke Humphries. And Luke Humphries undoubtedly has been one of the players of 2022. Now, it must be said, Luke Humphries has timed his poor run at the worst possible time in terms of form. Going out of the World Championship in the 4th round, he was really off against Stephen Bunting. Talk of an illness that night maybe playing a part. However, if we go a little bit further back, he didn't actually have much luck in a couple of tournaments previous. So he came into this Masters probably just needing to avoid a first round exit. And unfortunately, as it happened for Luke Humphries, he would exit to Chris Dobey. And a couple of days later, it would be Chris Dobey usurping that spot off him. I think this is extremely harsh on Luke Humphries. He won 5 tournaments last year, 4 on the Euro Tour. He won a Players' Championship. He was consistently, week in, week out, one of the best players of 2022. And whatever you think of him, on a personal level or as a player, I think you'd have to be looking with rose-tinted glasses on not to have Luke Humphries as a worthy member of this lineup. Now, I don't have any qualms with Jonny Clayton being involved. The 2021 champion, of course. He was a little bit off last year for a large part of 2022, but I think we saw him refined his best form at the crucial time. The kind of the opposite of Luke Humphries, in that he put together a really good run at the Worlds into the quarterfinals and a little bit unlucky not to get to the semi-finals on that occasion. And then looks really good again at the Masters. And he's looked good in Bahrain. He's looked good in the Nordic Masters as well. So, no reason not to include the Ferret in this. I think Nathan Aspinall and Dimitri van den Bergh, you can't argue too strongly with their inclusions, but they definitely could have been left out. Let's be honest, the PDC have taken the safe option in including these two because Dimitri had a pretty average year, it must be said. Didn't win any of the big TV titles, albeit had good runs at the World, semi-finals of the Match Play, quarters of the Grand Prix. So he's always there or thereabouts, but he's not kicked on and made a final or won anything this year. So I think he can consider himself fortunate to be in this year's Premier League, especially when his best previous performance is a fifth place finish, as you can see on your screen there. But again, he's shown himself time and time again to be competitive against the best players in the world. So he probably feels like he's deserving of a spot. And then Nathan Aspinall had a very, very solid year last year, but again, didn't actually win anything. And that's where it comes into the debate for me of who's, we saw the PDC initially last year shift to a kind of win and you're in with the majors. Now, this lineup leaves out the UK Open champion, a major winner in Danny Noppert. It leaves out the reigning European champion in Ross Smith. So to me, they've contradicted themselves in that element. I mean, I don't think Gary Anderson, James Wade, etc., could have any complaints about losing their spots because they were largely uncompetitive last year. Yes, Wade managed to make finals night, but didn't do anything there. His year generally was a disappointment by his own admission. Gary Anderson, likewise. So I don't think they could complain. But I do wonder whether it would have been. I think it would have been nicer for the PDC to reward Ross Smith for that European Championship win. Put him in, give him a chance. I mean, everything we've seen from Ross Smith in the last 6 months suggests this is not a flash in the pan, that he genuinely is going to be mixing it with the very best. He won a tight encounter against Damon Heta at the Masters, and I thought that showed all of his class there. And yeah, I just feel like there's been a bit too much emphasis put on the last 2 months rather than the last 12 months. And Ross Smith could consider himself very hard done by. Rob Cross is a very interesting one. I think on bare form, Rob Cross fully deserved to be in this lineup. But did he actually want to be in the lineup? That is the question. He tells you no, but then in another interview, he kind of hints towards, oh, actually, maybe I did. So I don't know really if Rob Cross wanted to be in this lineup or not. But I certainly think on form, he merited a spot over Nathan Aspinall, over Dimitri van den Bergh, and over Chris Dobey, despite Chris's defeat of him yesterday in the final. So there we are, two former winners in the field in Clayton and Van Gerwen, of course. Van Gerwen probably going to be instilled as quite a short favourite given his record in the competition, reigning champion. It's an interesting lineup. I would ask the question, can these four that have been chosen to have a spot, can they go and win it? And I'm looking at it and I'm actually not convinced that any of them can this year. Whereas in the previous years, I've actually put up as our channel selection Jonny Clayton in 2021 at 25-1. He went on to win it. And then we had Joe Cullen last year at a similar price, and he obviously missed the dart to win it. I had a genuine feeling that those sort of left field inclusions would go and grasp this opportunity. Chris Dobey, I think, is certainly in the best headspace of his career. However, his hammering from Michael van Gerwen in the World Championships showed to me that he still has a little bit of an inferiority complex at times. He's going to have to get rid of that very quickly, or this is going to be a chastening experience for him in this Premier League. I really hope that this is the making of Chris Dobey and not a really negative experience for him, but only time will tell him that. I think Dimitri van den Bergh is going to have to find another gear on what we've seen recently if he's going to compete. Nathan Aspinall and Jonny Clayton, of course, both been there and done it, been to the final of this event. But to me, there's none of them four outsiders make a great deal of appeal as an outright selection. I would probably be focusing at the top end of the market if I was to have a play. But as it is, I'm probably just going to see how the first few weeks of the competition pan out and then reassess from there. Anyway, as you can probably tell, it's not an event I'm hugely passionate about, but I do feel very, very sorry for, in particular, Ross Smith. I had a feeling Danny Noppert wouldn't get in because, his face doesn't seem to fit currently. But I think you could have made a fair case for him. And I'm very intrigued to see how these people that have been included get on. Let us know what you think about this year's Premier League lineup in the comments, what you would have changed. And yeah, thanks for watching Doubles and Trebles. I'm sure we'll be back to preview night one very soon. See you again soon. Thanks for watching.